Now, for the talk. We're here with Isabel, who is a recognized expert in AI privacy, security, and risk management, and works at upcoming European standards on AI risk management, and will now present us her tool PLOT4AI 2.0, open source threat modeling for trustworthy AI. Take it away.
Thank you. First, I must say I'm impressed with the public I'm getting, because after the party of yesterday, it's like I was not sure what's going to happen today. And besides this, I also a really cool talk at the same time about AI security. So I was myself like, oh, pity I cannot be there. I have to be here, but I'm also happy to be here with all of you. Well, I've been introduced, but I will just very shortly say something else about myself. So all the work I'm introducing today is the work I do as an independent researcher. And as independent researcher, I also do work, for instance, for the Council of Europe. So I will show you really briefly one of the reports that I do in risk of LLMs, specific of LLM systems. But on my daily job, I work in the Netherlands for the soon-to-be appointed AI supervisory authority as a senior advisor. So that's a bit lost from what this is my independent research that I do. Like I say, besides my job, so I'm not representing my employer here, to be like that. So all this is the work I've done for many years as a researcher and that I keep doing. And well, you see here from the logos also the one of ENISA is because I also do some advisory work for ENISA on data protection engineering. So that's why I mentioned it there. So today we're going to talk about AI, and it's nothing. And now it's like really the hype, especially since we have generative AI. But we have been using AI for many years, and like some examples you see here in this in the screen. And the thing is that my framework was launched before this hype of generative AI. So I launched at the beginning of 2022. And so I was already for years researching on security, safety, or what could go wrong with AI, at that time more traditional AI. And then later came the boom, especially with ChatGPT. And everybody became experts in AI, everybody knew them, everybody wanted to get into this world. And well, that also requested some updates for PLOT4AI. And the update is what I published in the beginning of June, that I want to show you now. And during these years, a lot has happened. So I also saw that we became more, sort of accustomed of some terms. I mean, before 2022, more in the research world, we talk about AI, and we have our terminology. But after that, especially again with the generative AI story, you know this, and the AI Act, for instance, too, and all these regulations, then we saw that some terms were much more used, and that also required that my framework had to be updated to be up to date with the new establishing terms. So what I see is that during these years, one way or the other, we became more mature in the field, and especially when it comes to terminology. So we have come to more agreement of what is what, and things that before we call in a different way. So a lot of things can go wrong with AI, and we have an incident database for the ones of you that don't know. There's more coming. So this is the incident database that now is also linked with the one of OECD. It's also doing a lot of work trying to show all the different incidents that are reported. And this is just an example of different things that can go wrong, from the deep fakes, of course, from the Tesla cars that they don't follow the right instructions, etc., etc. Especially when it comes to generated deep fakes and sextortion, that is becoming a really, really big issue. Of course, personal data, we know, and now with the talks with all these generative AI systems, we see that a lot of we become really worried about the data, personal data that we think that you extract from the different models. Also copyright, but I'm not going to get into this issue here. Also, when it comes to security, we can also now extract much more data that was even in data sets. So we see with different attacks that we get much more with issues of memorization of systems, for instance. And if we look into security, this is something that has grown much more now. So if you follow the work of OWASP, I don't know how many of you are in OWASP. Maybe your hand? I don't see many. But in security in general, but they're quite good. They're a reference, with the top 10 vulnerabilities. But when it comes to AI, I must say is one of the organizations that is doing, incredible work. And this is all voluntary work. So if you want to contribute to the world, to the work that OWASP is doing, it's all open source. You get into the Slack channel, and you can really contribute to the last guidance are being released about AI red teaming, LLM vulnerabilities at the application level, etc., etc. So it's and now they are working a lot in agentic AI. So at least to learn, there's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge in those teams, and it's nice to see, of course, the community contributing voluntarily to this work. So what you see is that the OWASP we're already releasing some work of all the different things that can go wrong at the different phases of a life cycle of an AI system. Now, what I'm going to introduce you today is PLOT4AI. So it's what you see here on your right. That is the framework that I created. It's a framework. It's also a card game. It's also an online game. You will see now a bit how it works. And what you see on your left side and on the top are the publications that I've done for the European Data Protection Board and for the Council of Europe. And one way or the other, they have become quite booming, and they have been even used at universities now to look at the different risks of LLMs, especially from the side of data protection and security. So just for the ones of you interested in getting a bit more deep dive into what is going on in LLMs from a technical perspective, and also from a regulatory perspective, because this research is a mix, then it's also interesting for you to see. Now, PLOT4AI at this moment contains 138 cards. You will see now it's a game with cards. The cards are online. There are also physical cards. And every card represents a source of risk. What you see with PLOT4AI, not all risks are pure AI risks. And that for me was important, because we can do a distinction, like in the field of security. We always had this discussion about what is really a proper AI security vulnerability. But a lot of it is just general security. If you have access to a model, then of course you can have evasion, you can have poisoning, this and that. But there are really vulnerabilities more specific for AI. What I found important during my research was to make a general overview of sources of risk. And I'm not going to get into the discussion like we have in standardization about what is a threat, what is a risk, what is a source of risk, what is a hazard. I don't get into that. For me, when I create PLOT4AI, I try to make it as practical as possible. And what I saw when I was in the engineering teams, that for us was more useful, and the things that could really go wrong. And that was the reason why I based it on threat modeling methodology. What I also did was to categorize all the threats or the sources of risk that I found during the first years of research. And as a result, you will see later we have 8 different categories. And there's not only security, it's accessibility, transparency, ethics and human rights, etc. I will show you now. And what you see also is that the cards have 2 sides. One where you see the threat, what can go wrong, and behind some recommendations with links to research papers and a lot of information to help you, to think how you could mitigate it. It's of course not this is the way, but it's a recommendation. Again, with AI, like with any other technology, or mitigations are a specific use case. So you cannot. Some things are it's really clear. Access control, okay, then limit access control. But in general, it all depends on the specific use case. After being researching for more than three years, I came to the conclusion that what I have created was such a huge source of knowledge and information that I decided to give it to the world. And it has a license, open source, attribution share alike, and it can be also used for commercial purposes. So I don't have any restrictions on it. I must say you will see it later, but PLOT4AI, maybe for most of you it's not known here. I'm not sure how many of you, but it's really internationally used in a lot of different organizations now since it was released in 2022. Now, just a bit about the story, what was the trigger for me about why PLOT4AI. The thing is that in the different projects where I was, and before I joined the AI supervisor, I've been advisor for many years in different all type of organizations, from government, startups, all type of sizes. So I've seen so many different things, and what it's something that for me was important when it came 2019-20 was the thing that AI is not just a technical problem, that you have to look much more beyond the technique regulation. Then you also have safety problems, security. So I realized that just looking at when you look and work from the privacy perspective, for instance, and you want to do a data protection impact assessment, well, the type of frameworks that we have are absolutely not enough. You really need to think beyond, out of the box, to realize all the different things that can go wrong when you are designing one of these systems. Then the type of impact assessments that we have, like I say, the data protection impact assessment, or all these audits that you have, for mostly like based on for fundamental rights, it was also not enough. And many times the questions that came were too late. I don't know, what would the model do? But you are in the design phase, you don't even know at that point which model or what you don't know this. So I realized this is not helping us. So something that also triggered to me, that was the point. I was for years researching, and then I happened to work I don't know if you know this, the Dutch childcare benefit scandal that we had in the Netherlands, where was not only an AI problem, though it's one of the AI problems, that there was some fraud issues in the tax office. So it seems that citizens were only accused of committing fraud by the tax office with the benefits that you get for the childcare. And it seems, that AI, the results of the AI scoring were not right. Like I said, I don't like when I hear this was an AI problem, because it was much more than an AI problem. It was a whole process problem, and there's a lot of publications about this. So I'm not going to spend time on that. But I had, I would say at some point, the privilege of being hired to work with a team of data scientists here to also look at this algorithm to see what the problem was, and keep doing some analysis on that for our data privacy impact assessment. And that was for me the definitive point when I thought, well, we really need to have some framework, because what I see, all the things that we want to develop here, it is really not enough. We need to have much more. So that was for me one of the triggers. Why threat modeling? Something that I use often in my work before was Lindum. So I don't know if you know this framework. It's a framework for privacy threat modeling. And a bit similar to if you have worked with Stride, for instance, but this is more specific for privacy. And it has been developed by KU Leuven University in Belgium. And it's also a card game with cards, every card with a different threat to privacy. Mostly from the technical perspective, but you also see threats are more from the regulatory perspective, for instance. And they keep developing. So Lindum has now also been upgraded, like PLOT4AI. So when I came to the idea of PLOT4AI, for me the first idea was I want to create like Lindum, but a version for AI. Because Lindum for me was not sufficient, was really only focused on privacy and was not specific for AI systems. So I noticed that for me it didn't work well when I was applying it in the project. So I thought something like that would be really cool, that we can use at the different phases of a development life cycle, questioning what can go wrong, and by getting a library with references that help you to realize the different things that can go wrong during that phase. So at that time, I remember I involved also the researchers from Lindum. We presented in a US conference in, I think it was 2021 then, that so PLOT4AI was like a baby. It was only had 25 threads. It even was not called PLOT4AI at that time. It was, I think, Lindum ML, I think I call it at that time. And like that, it kept growing until I gave it a name, the design, created a website. And for that, I must say I want to thank the one in green there. I know he doesn't like to be mentioned, but my husband has been helping me with everything. So I've been for so many evenings, weekends working on this until I thought, well, I want to put this in a really nice website with an assessment. I want to design the card game. I want to do all this and give it to the world. And with his help, we were many evenings for, I think it was 3 weeks, really intense working, building everything. And that was in 2022 when finally we published. So PLOT4AI contains more than 300 sources of information. Everything is referenced in the website. It has a list with references, but also in every card you see different links to different research papers, blogs that I found personally interesting. So everything is there. I don't even count anymore, but there are a lot. So what I did is to, as a researcher, I analyzed all the different sources of information. I must say, because this is not academic research, it comes from as an independent researcher, I wanted to make it really useful and practical for everybody, and especially industry, and that is why I've also added a lot of my own expertise, a lot of blog posts that I find interesting, and not just academic papers, but a lot of it is of course based on academic research, because I find that it is really foundationally essential for justifying your research. What you see in PLOT4AI, like I explained before, is the holistic approach. So I don't believe that we should look only at risk of an AI model, not even an AI system in itself, but also the whole environment that makes the system, the components, the infrastructure. So all that needs to be taken into account. That is something you see much better in the research papers I mentioned before for the Council of Europe, there where I go more in deep into this type of information. Of course, PLOT4AI is a tool that helps you to realize all the different things that can go wrong. Also, when it comes to data and data governance, just to put an example, and not just only the AI model in itself. So in the beginning, in 2022, after analyzing all the different resources that I found, I came to this conclusion. I had a tool with 86 different threads, and this was the taxonomy that I had at that time. So I had threads related to technique and processes, to accessibility, identifiability and linkability, security, safety, unawareness, ethics and human rights, and non-compliance. For the ones of you that know Lindum, we'll see some similarity in some of the categorization, because unawareness, for instance, that is lack of transparency, that comes from Lindum. Lindum was also called unawareness, and I decided to keep in line because at that time for me, was the meaning of creating kind of an extension of Lindum. The same of identifiability and linkability of personal data, instead of calling it privacy, because that was, again, the relation with Lindum. So I was also one of the first one mentioning accessibility as one of the problems with AI systems, that at that time, accessibility and safety were not so often mentioned when it comes to issues of AI. And what I also did was to, and I think I created a really simple development lifecycle framework. So doing some analysis of, I don't know, the ones of you that work with AI, we often use frameworks for the development. Now they get more advanced because you also mix it with DevOps and other integrations that we do. But in general, and for sure in 2022, those were from the more known frameworks. And in the end, what I did was to reduce it to 4 phases that I thought for everybody are understandable. So I tested this in some of the organizations where I was working, and it worked quite fine. Because what you see with PLOT4AI is that it's a tool that is used by everybody. So it's not meant to be used only for engineers and data scientists. It's meant to be used together with everybody, with your business owner, with your colleagues from HR, from whoever that needs to be involved in that specific project. So the life cycle is really important. It's something that we see more and more now in the world of AI. It's something that I've been abdicating for many years, and I'm glad that I see much more happening now. So for me, in the publications I've done before, I find that doing risk management at the life cycle, at the level of the different phases in a life cycle, is really important. Because what you see is that there's different things that can really go wrong at the different phase. So it's important to pay attention to that. And it's something that, for instance, in cybersecurity we also see. So this is it comes from NIST from the US. And there what you see is that some different attacks, for instance, in security, it also depends if you are at the training phase or if you are in the inference phase that could happen during testing or could happen later once the system is, in this case, the model is in a system already in production. And other attacks, for instance, happen more at the deployment phase. So it's important to have an account where you are to realize that different things can go wrong. And when it comes to personal data, from more of the same. So this is, by the way, an image that is in the report from the two reports I show you. So what we let here see is that at every different phase, you are one way or the other processing different types of data and personal data, and that's why it's important that you keep answering yourself what can go wrong here and there. So, and that is one of the reasons why I chose threat modeling. What I really find personally really nice of threat modeling is that it's quite accessible. It's something we do all ourselves. We are wondering ourselves all the time, what can go wrong here? Should I choose here? Should I choose there? We are making choices all the time based on kind of a risk assessment that we do mentally, maybe not so conscious, of course, of it's a risk assessment, but you make choices every day. If you buy something that is more expensive, no, I mean, you make maybe the choice, oh, well, this is biological, it's more expensive, maybe it's better for my health, but still it's more expensive, should I do it, should I not? This type of thought is kind of already doing some threat modeling in your mind. So in threat modeling, and I put here, the name of the threat modeling manifesto. So there's a group of experts that have been working hard in threat modeling for many years. And one really famous, Adam Shostak, is like kind of the founder of the 4 questions of threat modeling that we have. Like you see here, what we do in the beginning, what are we working on? Because that is really essential. It's not starting with what can go wrong, but what are we really working on? You need that moment of reflection to realize, what do I want to design? What do I want to do? If you are further, can we build a data flow diagram, for instance, to have much more detail in what we are building? Then you will go into the phase of what can go wrong. Then how can we solve it? What can we do about it? And after that, again, the moment of reflection of, did we do a good job about this? Like I mentioned before, this is something like in security, frameworks that we use on threat modeling. Stride, for instance, is one of them that we use for security assessments. And what we see is that there is quite technical. You see that the threats are also quite technical. And we see that in the world of threat modeling, we are now moving towards offering threat modeling to the world in a different way. So not just for the technical part, but also for processes, also for privacy and data protection, also like I do with PLOT4AI for everybody. I mean, you have the different taxonomy, so everybody can do PLOT4AI, PLOT4AI too, can do a threat modeling, because it's a really accessible methodology. And why it's really interesting too, because it's like the first phase of risk management. When we do our risk identification phase, it's really handy. Once you identify what can go wrong, you can move further. I mean, it's not that you identify and you decide, okay, this is high level, this is, and then would you solve it? I mean, you could solve maybe low-hanging fruit or quick fix, to put it like that. You do a threat modeling session, you identify problems, and you know some of them can be quickly fixed, fine. But the rest, you need to go eventually into a risk management process. And every organization has one, I hope, for you. And it depends. Sometimes regulation, like now we see with the AI Act for high-risk systems, it's going to require you to have a specific way of doing risk management. So what you see is that eventually those risks that you have identified, and like I put here in the slides, this risk and identifying the risks also depending on if you are you have some exposure to that threat. So identifying a threat doesn't mean that it affects you. You could identify a risk, like we see in PLOT4AI. You use the library, you identify a threat, and then you see, okay, is this for me or not? Am I exposed to this? And are there risk factors that I could have, vulnerabilities in the system, something else in the environment, architecture? And then is when you see, well, this could be really a harm for me. And in a normal or standard risk management process, you will move into doing your probability, severity assessment, or impact likelihood, whatever you want to call it, and eventually move to risk mitigation and keep monitoring. So something very important with AI systems is that you need to keep monitoring all the time, because there's no solutions for all the systems today. I'm more with the non-deterministic nature. You need to keep monitoring. Even that is not warranted, but well, at least keep monitoring, and then you could go back to the phase in risk management when you have to identify again threats from what you are monitoring. So coming to, after all this story, PLOT4AI was created as a threat modeling framework, and some things have changed. Let me check the slide up after that. What you see, I will talk later about the new update in 2025. I will show you now what it contains. So PLOT4AI contains, like I said before, different threads, and every thread is online. You can find them as in a library where it's a card that you open. The card contains a question. So that question is what you ask in your team. And why I made questions of it, because I did some research, and in my own experience, it works much better in teams when you ask the question and you can only answer yes, no, or I don't know, that when you just say, well, this is the threat. And then everybody has to think, okay, but does that apply to me or not? I mean, it might work for you also, okay, but in my experience and for some papers I found, it's also it's one a more accessible way to make teams scope the question and realize if it affects you or not. So every question, what you see in the card is that they all have on the top a category to which category belong to. So in this case, it's an example of accessibility question. And then also the life cycle where the card, where this specific threat could arise. And like I say, my research, this is a suggestion. Could of course arise in others, but it's where I see that it comes more often. So that also helps you facilitate a bit there, so you don't have to go through all the threads all the time. But if you know, okay, I'm now in the development, in the modeling phase, then I can pick only the threads that belong to that specific phase. Then under every question you have an explanation, because not always is so clear what the question means for the team. And then the framework already tells you if your answer is yes or not, then you might be at risk. So it already facilitates that to you. When you turn the card, what you have are recommendations to solve that issue and interesting sources of and references. When you do threat modeling, I must say the back of the card we don't use so often, because of course it costs a lot of time to go through everything. So we go only through the questions to identify quickly what can go wrong, and then only when you have identified, that you can decide to go through the recommendations to use it. But then again, everybody is using it in a different way. So how does it really work? I already said more or less a lot about it, but in principle, you could have a moment during your life cycle where you are sitting with different stakeholders, and then it depends, of course, of the product you are building, and not only for development. I must say that when I created PLOT4AI in the beginning was for developers. So when you are developing yourself an AI system, with the new version, what you see is that I have changed that. So now it doesn't matter if you are a developer, even if you are thinking in deploying AI, it's still useful enough. So I made it much more broader. So when you want to do some procurement of an AI system, you want to implement third-party AI, you want to develop your own AI system, you have the advice of PLOT4AI is to gather a team of different people that will have something important to say in that meeting, and not just the engineers. because we get everything in our bag. We take care of safety, we take care of security, but the reality is that there's several things where you need to agree with much more people in an organization. So you will sit together. Depending on the phase where you are, you might have a data flow diagram where you can already see, well, what are we thinking that our system is going to do? Where do we expect to get the data from, for instance? That's one of the things I've seen really often. We have with a really cool idea, but in the end, getting the data and good data quality was really a big issue. And not only that, but also think how you're going to do it, maybe with some integration, APIs. What do you think to store the data? I mean, there's so many things that you could think in a first phase. So, like I said, depending on the phase where you are, you could have a more detailed diagram flow or not. This is an example, really, basic example from ThreadDragon. So in PLOT4AI is also in ThreadDragon. For the ones of you who don't know, ThreadDragon is an open source framework from OWASP for data flow to create data flow diagrams, and it's and for thread modeling. So it is. When you use ThreadDragon, you can select which type of framework you want to use. If you want to use Stride, for instance, even Lindun is also there, and then also PLOT4AI. With PLOT4AI, we are now in the process of updating or changing the part for ThreadDragon. Why? Because what I see is that for AI, we need more specific components that we don't have in a standard. When you create I don't know how many of you are knowledgeable with when you create data flow diagrams, but we have like the basic type of shapes and forms, and that with their kind of meaning, to put it like that. But you want to have for AI also components that means, for instance, the model or the output, and because there's threads that are there in that area, and then otherwise you don't have a representation of that. So we are working on that and adding the new phases too that are now in the new phase of PLOT4AI. So once you are together with your group of different stakeholders, you will select a card. This is an example what you see here of how PLOT4AI was before. Now there's an update, so you will see it's not called privacy library of threads anymore. But when I released it in 2022, I kept it linked to privacy and data protection, and that's why I chose that name. I don't make any money with PLOT4AI. I don't sell the physical card game that does cybersec games that were before called Agile Stationary. It's so far I know the only organization that sells thread modeling games. So I gave to them a license to print the game and sell it. So I mean, the ones of you that want a physical game have to go there. I have to go myself there to do my boxes. Of course, I get a discount as author, but further than that, I have to be clear, I don't make any money with my framework. When you select a card, this is an example of what you will see. Like I explained before, in the card, you have the question, you have the explanation. And you can also do it online. So if you go to the website of PLOT4AI and to the library, then you can see also the different categories. You can click per thread. For instance, in this case, you see the blue ones for data and data governance. If you click in the blue arrow, then you will see information. Like this is an example of the online card for security. Like I explained before, you have the category, the question, etc., etc., and this is the back of the card. Now, there's also something I provide in the website, and it's an online assessment. So you can also do the game online, and this is something that's being used a lot. I can check in my website. I don't know, I have it so private, I don't even know who does what, but I see the countries that use it, and the times they download the report is incredible. It's used many thousands of times. Completely anonymous. You don't need to say anything who you are or anything. Just click which categories, which phase of the development you want to do your thread modeling, and then you go through the questions. And after that, you get a spreadsheet with the result that you get that to download, where it says, well, those are the threads that have been selected, where you should do something about it. And then, of course, you go through your process of classifying high risk, middle risk, or whatever you need. So I've just tried to facilitate the process for everybody, one way or the other. So some of the benefits of using PLOT4AI, yeah, the organizations they become more conscious of the things that can go wrong. They also reduce a lot the rework. That's also my experience, because you really realize from the beginning of, well, this is the way I need to go, and not later once, I don't know, I've seen it often, that the scientists are busy with some type of model, and later comes in the questions, oh, but our model needs to be explainable. Oh shit, now we need to go back to and choose another system. So it helps with that. The college of from the privacy department gets also really happy, because they get also a list of risks for their data protection impact assessment, can be also quite useful. And I must say, it also helps to increase the maturity of organizations, because you see that a lot of the threats are more organization related. And once you solve that problem, and you don't have to pick that card anymore in the next sessions if you have solved really internally that problem. Like I mentioned before, it's used, I don't know, this is from a few months ago. Now it's even more since the last release. It's used a lot. I know there's a lot of big organizations also using it internally from the big tech, without naming names, but I know. And though they should use it maybe more often, or some things I see. And yeah, let's keep moving. It's also mentioned by the OECD and some research papers as a recommended tool for developers. So I'm, of course, proud of that my work has been mentioned in so many places. So what's next? We want to move into vendor risk assessment expansion, so that you also go through the whole threats. You can do a similar threat modeling, but from the vendor assessment. So because I see that that's really needed nowadays. I'm also working on translations. At this moment, PLOT4AI is only in English, but I'm working on translation for sure. Of course, I'm originally Spanish, so Spanish, Dutch, and German, Italian, French, and it's a community-driven project. So whoever wants to help translate or whatever will be super cool. And now I just wanted to quickly mention some of the changes that happens in 2025 with PLOT4AI. So like you say here, one of the main things is, I'll mention it later, but it's the name that has changed. So now it's not privacy library of threats, but they call it practical library of threats, because the nature of PLOT4AI is not only privacy, but it's more holistic. And there's also new categories. So the 8 categories that I have updated them to the new environment that we have now with AI. I also look a lot, of course, to the new AI Act and other regulations. And that came to as a result that I have these new 8 different categories. Like you see here, data and data governance, transparency and accessibility, privacy and data protection, cybersecurity, safety and environmental impact, bias, fairness and discrimination, ethics and human rights, and accountability and human oversight. I've also, it's mentioned there. I've also increased the threats. I mean, threats have changed, have been updated. There's 52 new threats. There's a lot of Agentic AI threats. It's completely up to date until the day of 1 week ago, so to put it like that. So everything I see new coming, I add it in a cart or I create a new thread. So at this moment, 138, but and I try not to increase a lot. I try to embed it in what I have, because a lot of things happening they belong to some category. They don't have to be new things, but I find important to mention new attacks and new threats that are happening. The phases have also changed, because what before for me was the base of the foundation of PLOT4AI for developers. Now it's for no matter if you are developing or you are implementing as a third party. So then it's not the phases of a development lifecycle, but there now are phases of an AI lifecycle. So from inception to retirement of a system. So and that is why phases now are different. And like you see here, it's from design, model, deploy, input, output, and monitor. For the monitoring phase, I find it extremely important, and that is why it's also here now. Yeah, the design has also changed, so I have a colleague that helped me to change, update the cards and make them much nicer. And the assessment tool, of course, has been updated with the new taxonomy and is much more user-friendly now. Like I mentioned before, the name has also changed. And the categories, like I also mentioned, have changed from they keep being 8, but they have been updated. I already talked about the life cycle, so I won't get too much into that. Something important to mention is that in every card, I also mention if this specific thread might be applicable to which role, if you are a provider or deployer. So for the ones of you that are following the European AI Act, I've also made that suggestion in the card for as deployer, this might be to you. And in the assessment, you can also choose to filter, so it's much easier for you to see which thread could be applicable to you. I've also indicated in the logo, there you see the logo PLOT4AI at the end, if a card is for generative AI or for both, because much of the threads of PLOT4AI are for traditional AI and generative AI, but there are some that are really specific for generative AI. So then you see that in the logo in the card, it says Gen AI, so this is just for Gen AI. And what I've also done with that also the help of my husband there, the classification of the confidentiality, availability, integrity for the CIA triad for security. So the cards are also classified in security to indicate if this threat could affect which of the CIA triad in security. And I think for CISOs and security departments, it's usually for us important to know that. Some examples of threats, quickly just reading through some of them. Could the AI system become persuasive, causing harm to the individual? Are we protected from exploits on software dependencies of our AI ML systems? Could we be revealing information that a person has not chosen to share? And of course, maybe sounds a bit high level, but when you look into the examples, it's much... Okay, in this case, could the lack of interpretability in our AI models compromise safety? So by reading also the information, you realize that, oh, wow, this might be really an issue for us. Or our AI inference APIs and function calling interfaces security implemented on CPU, wherever you are using, everything is also explained here. So just to finalize, my shout out, please, my call to action, contribute with PLOT4AI. I have a Slack channel. It's everything in GitHub, so you can download that. By the way, the cards, they're also downloadable in the website, so you don't have to buy the game. You can also download and print it yourself. Of course, the game is nice with the box, but you can do what you want. It's all there. Everything is available. What I find cool is if people contribute to the thread. So sometimes I get messages like, hey, I've seen this attack. Of course, I monitor a lot. But it's nice to get these messages, or people that really through GitHub wants to make changes or whatever. So everything is super welcome. Adding a new source of information, a new research paper, whatever you see, please contribute. And then eventually I will make a list of contributors or something so that you can be also mentioned. That's also nice. Yeah, thank you. That's all from my side. And now time for water.
Yeah. So, really nice on time. Really interesting project. Now I get a better understanding because I was not so much in the thing, and I thought plot has to be something with diagrams or whatever. And now I understand it's just you somehow chose that abbreviation. So, questions.
Thank you for your great presentation, and also thanks to your husband contributing to the to the project. You mentioned that you also included Gen AI symbols, and you mentioned that this was a game that was finished in 2022, right? So the latest version is something like this. So is it something you're ongoing updating, or how's it?
Yeah, I keep updating, but maybe it has not been so clear in my presentation. I should have structured in a different way. But when I started researching in 2019, then I published in 2022. Then months later came, of course, the boom of ChatGPT, blah, blah, blah. So for many years, I kept researching, and I knew I had to do a really big update. So from 2022 until June 2025, I've been doing some updates in PLOT4AI, but I knew it needed a really big update. So I was, the last 6 months, really busy making the big change, because And it's not done yet because, of course, we're still now also with my husband. It's more the JavaScript with the thread with the thread dragon that we need to build all that because that's community. So it's really nice that it's there. But if you want it to be that it fits with Plot4AI, really, you need to help to create the components to build. So that also needs to be done and all the vendor assessment things, so all that, because I really see the needs, and then I keep building, and now that I have it there, so I keep developing things. But yeah, the big update that was I was published June 2025, and then is when I include everything. Yeah, I saw the need, like it cannot be like this anymore. Now we really need, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
More questions?
Are you gonna use it? Yes. Good. At least try it. It's really open-minded. Of course, it's not a technical tool, but you could make it automated. I'm sure others have done it already. Some people don't say because, of course, it's commercial, but attribution share alike. So, but I don't care. I know that a lot have already used it and including their things. I made it for that. If I can facilitate others the world. For me, it's my passion, so I just like to research, and then why not make it for everybody available? We make together a better world. So if I can help, at least what I see, I know maybe you think, oh, it's a colorful game or this, but when you go through a session of Plot4AI, it really changes your project. So I would really recommend you to do it at least once, and you will see like it's really changed mine.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I mean, it looks so pretty, and all those details and the work and keeping it up to date, and then it's just free for everybody to use. I mean, imagine. I mean, it's like open source software. I mean, it's like, thank you for all the work you put into that. And I can really, because we've been in discussions in my organization that found out in March or something that the EU AI Act was started in February, and they should have known years before, and now they're scrambling. But I think that would really be a good tool to get to start to talk to different people about that.
Yeah, and even before you implement AI or you develop, it really helps you to realize maybe we should do it in this or the other way, or maybe it's really it's more. It raises a lot of awareness of yourself, more self-consciousness and that's really interesting. Because it's accessible to everybody, so not only for engineers. I see also a lot of teams of engineers using it. They do during the agile process, the threat modeling, and then they use also the cards. So they learn which cards based on the system, then they only use those cards. So that's really cool too. So
yeah, but particularly because also it's more about the process. I mean, the longer you do stuff, the more you learn that it's not technical solutions, it's people. And that's something you need to talk about and get somehow into a discussion and change.
Yeah.
And it's much harder than just buying some other software.
Yeah, and then also because Plot4AI is not only about processes, it's also really technical. It has all type of threats, from the more technical to the less and then that's what makes it really interesting. So it's like I say, if you do a security threat modeling session, then maybe do it only with the team more technical, because some of the threats are quite some technical things, so to get everybody involved. But if you want to do like the category of ethics and human rights, and it's interesting to have, of course, not only the engineers, but have more people from the team, and maybe even expand the answer and not only do yes and no, but have some discussion. Because in the times I've been using it, I noticed that especially with that category, organizations find it difficult. They always have something to say. So yes and no is not enough. Yeah,
particularly bringing people together, because so far it's the technical people that say, oh yeah, I just put it in the chat window and it's so great, I'm using it every day. And you say, well, what data are you putting in? How what? And particularly getting into the discussion, because the other people just say, I have never heard of AI, I don't know. So
it's generally like that. In my experience, I mean, in the technical teams, we can have really cool ideas. Then there come people more from the business. They find everything wonderful. And more if it comes to AI, I don't know, but everything looks great. But then when you start going through the critical questions, like, oh yeah, we could feed the model with this, but wait a second, how are you gonna feed the model? Yeah, we could maybe do surveys. Okay, but then you have free text. How are you gonna do that understanding of data? And then you start realizing of maybe it's not so easy after all. Maybe we should rethink. So there are things that it can really help you to realize of all those things. Because otherwise it's just I don't say, I want to say that the engineers are more powerful, but when it comes to AI, we have more the power of understanding at least the technology, while the others just find everything fascinating. And then that is a problem because you don't see the risks. So you need a tool like PLOT4AI to help you realize of all the things that can go wrong.
Okay, yeah, thank you.